Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something that may surprise you. Prayer is one of the most powerful tools given to us. It connects the natural to the supernatural, the finite to the infinite. Yet, as with all things of great power, there are responsibilities and risks. Prayer is not just a ritual or a recitation, it's a system, a mechanism, a divine transaction. But within its beauty lies a depth that many have not fully explored, a depth that, if misunderstood, can lead to unintended consequences. You see, prayer is not about informing God of your needs. He already. Prayer aligns you with the divine will, purpose, and order of heaven. It is not merely an act of asking, but a positioning. However, when you engage in consistent prayer, you are entering a realm that demands understanding. Without comprehension, even your purest intentions can lead to outcomes that may challenge your faith or overwhelm your soul. Let us explore this truth deeply, for prayer is not a casual exercise, it is a partnership, a covenant, and a gateway to realms unseen. When you consistently pray, you are engaging the spiritual world. You are not simply speaking into the air, you are making declarations, requests, and petitions that stir forces both divine and demonic. The spiritual world operates on laws, and ignorance of these laws does not exempt you from their effects. Consistent prayer, when uninformed, can unintentionally open doors. Some pray for strength, not realizing that the answer to such a prayer often comes in the form of challenges that test and refine their character. Others pray for patience and find themselves in situations that stretch them to their limits. Prayer works, but it doesn't always work the way you imagine. Consistent prayer also exposes you to warfare. The moment you choose to pray regularly, you become a threat to the enemy's agenda. You see, prayer shifts atmospheres. It disrupts darkness and establishes light. This is not metaphorical. It is a reality that those who persist in prayer will eventually encounter. But here lies the hidden danger. If you are not prepared for the spiritual opposition that comes with prayer, you may find yourself discouraged, disillusioned, or even retreating from the very practice that holds the key to your breakthrough. The adversary will not remain silent when you begin to align with heaven's purposes. The moment your words carry divine authority, you become a target. Furthermore, prayer requires integrity. The words you release in prayer carry power, but they must be backed by a life of alignment. Consistent prayer without consistent living creates a disconnect. If you pray for provision but fail to manage what you already have, your prayers may seem unanswered. If you pray for healing but harbor unforgiveness, you block the very flow you're asking for. Prayer demands that we examine ourselves, not just our requests. It is not enough to pray, you must live in harmony with what you pray for. Many people view prayer as a transactional activity. Ask and you shall receive. While this is true, it is incomplete. Prayer is not just about what you receive, it's about who you become. Consistent prayer changes you before it changes your circumstances. It refines your motives, purifies your desires, and challenges your intentions. And this is where another hidden danger lies. If you are not ready to confront yourself, prayer will make you uncomfortable. It will expose your fears, insecurities, and hidden motives. Prayer doesn't just bring you closer to God, it reveals who you are in light of Him. Some people use prayer as a shield to avoid responsibility. They pray for opportunities but refuse to take the steps necessary to prepare for them. They pray for miracles but fail to exercise faith in action. Consistent prayer is not a substitute for action, it is the fuel for it. Prayer prepares the atmosphere, but it is your obedience that activates the miracle. The danger here is subtle. If you rely solely on prayer without corresponding action, you risk falling into a cycle of frustration, wondering why nothing seems to change. Another aspect to consider is the timing of prayer. Consistent prayer brings you into alignment with divine timing, but divine timing does not always match your expectations. One of the hidden dangers of consistent prayer is impatience. When answers do not come as quickly as you expect, doubt can creep in. You might begin to question whether God heard you, whether your prayers were effective, or even whether prayer works at all. But let me tell you, this prayer works not because of your timing, but because of God's faithfulness. Faith in prayer requires trusting the process, even when the outcome seems delayed. The more you pray, the more you are exposed to God's heart. And here is a profound truth: God's heart is vast and His ways are higher than ours. As you consistently pray, you may find that your prayers begin to shift. What you thought you needed may no longer seem important. What you once feared may no longer hold power over you. This is both a blessing and a challenge. When you pray consistently, God doesn't just answer your prayers, He transforms your perspective. But transformation can be unsettling, especially if you are deeply attached to your own plans and desires. Consistent prayer also requires perseverance. Not every prayer is answered immediately, and not every answer comes in the form you expect. There are moments when you will pray and feel as though heaven is silent. These are the moments that test the depth of your faith. Will you continue to pray when the answers seem far away? Will you trust in God's sovereignty when your circumstances suggest otherwise? Consistent prayer stretches your faith, but stretching is not comfortable. It is in these moments of discomfort that you discover the true power of prayer, not as a tool to manipulate outcomes, but as a means to deepen your relationship with God. Another hidden danger of consistent prayer is the tendency to fall into routine. Prayer can become mechanical, a checklist item rather than a living dialogue with God. When this happens, the power of prayer is diminished. It is not the quantity of your prayers that matters, but the quality. Prayer is not about how many words you say, but about the posture of your heart. A single, heartfelt prayer can move mountains, while endless, empty repetitions achieve nothing. The danger lies in losing the connection, in forgetting that prayer is about communion, not performance. Consistent prayer will also bring you into a place of greater accountability. The more you pray, the more you will hear from God. But hearing from God requires obedience. When God reveals His will to you, you are faced with a choice: will you follow or will you resist? Prayer is not just about receiving blessings, it is about submitting to the will of the one who blesses. And submission is not easy. It requires surrender, trust, and a willingness to let go of control. If you are not ready to obey, consistent prayer will challenge you in ways you may not anticipate. Let us not forget the responsibility that comes with answered prayer. When God answers your prayers, He often entrusts you with more than you expected. With every blessing comes responsibility, and with every answered prayer comes an assignment. If you pray for influence, you must be ready to lead. If you pray for resources, you must be ready to steward them. If you pray for opportunities, you must be ready to act. The hidden danger here is in underestimating what it takes to manage what you prayed for. Prayer is not for the faint of heart. It is a discipline, a commitment, and a lifestyle. It is not a quick fix or a magic formula. It is a journey. And on this journey, you will encounter challenges, tests, and even dangers. But do not let these deter you. Instead, let them prepare you. For prayer, when understood and embraced fully, is the most powerful force you will ever wield. Prayer is not only the act of speaking, it is the act of listening. And herein lies another layer of its hidden complexity. Consistent prayer, if approached genuinely, will teach you to recognize the voice of God. But learning to hear His voice only means discerning it from the multitude of others that surround you. The human mind is a battlefield of thoughts, emotions, and influences, some of which align with God's will and others that do not. As you engage in prayer consistently, the line between divine guidance and personal desires can become blurred if you are not careful. This is why humility and discernment are essential companions to prayer. Listening to God through prayer is a sacred responsibility. It is not about seeking confirmation for what you already want to do, but about seeking clarity for what you are called to do. And often God's voice will challenge you to go against the grain of your comfort, your plans, or even your logic. The hidden danger here is subtle, but profound. What will you do when God tells you something that disrupts your current path? Will you ignore it, rationalize it away, or follow it in faith, even when the road ahead seems unclear? Consistent prayer demands that you make peace with the unpredictability of divine direction. As you grow in the discipline of prayer, you will inevitably encounter the weight of intercession. To intercede is to stand in the gap, to pray not only for yourself but for others, for communities, for nations. Intercessory prayer is a noble calling, but it is not without its challenges. When you begin to pray for others, you take on a burden that is not your own. You feel their struggles, their pain, and their needs as though they are your own. This spiritual empathy is powerful, but it can also be overwhelming if you are not prepared to carry it. Intercession requires resilience and trust in God's sovereignty. There will be times when you intercede fervently and see no immediate results. There will be times when you pray for someone's healing, only to witness their suffering continue. These moments can test your faith deeply, tempting you to question the purpose of prayer or the goodness of God. But intercession is not about immediate results. It is about standing in faith and partnership with God's will, even when the outcomes are not as you envisioned. Another often overlooked aspect of consistent prayer is the transformation it brings to your desires. The more you pray, the more your heart begins to align with God's heart. What you once desired may no longer satisfy you, and what once seemed insignificant may become the very thing you long for. This is a beautiful transformation, but it is also disruptive. When your desires change, your life often needs to change to accommodate them. You may find yourself letting go of relationships, habits, or pursuits that no longer align with who you are becoming in prayer. This process of letting go is not always easy, and it can feel like a loss before it feels like a gain. Consistent prayer also brings an increased awareness of spiritual realities. You begin to see beyond the surface of things, recognizing the unseen forces at work in your life and the world around you. This heightened awareness is both a gift and a responsibility. When you see the spiritual battles that others do not, you may feel isolated or misunderstood. You may find yourself carrying a weight of knowledge that others cannot comprehend. The hidden danger here is in allowing this awareness to lead to pride or despair instead of humility and hope. Prayer is not an escape from the challenges of life. It is an entry point into a deeper engagement with them. It sharpens your vision, strengthens your spirit, and equips you for the battles ahead. But it also exposes you to the cost of carrying divine purpose. Consistent prayer will reveal to you the magnitude of God's plans and the smallness of your own strength. It will challenge you to depend on Him entirely, to surrender your control and trust His leading. And surrender is not a one-time act, it is a daily choice, a continual laying down of your will for His. As you persist in prayer, you may also encounter seasons of spiritual dryness. These are times when you feel as though your prayers are hitting a wall, when God seems silent and your faith feels weak. These seasons are not a sign of failure but of growth. They teach you to pray not out of feeling but out of conviction. They teach you to seek God not for what He can do but for who He is. But the hidden danger in these seasons is discouragement. If you are not rooted in faith, the silence of God can feel like abandonment. Yet it is in these moments of silence that your faith is refined and your perseverance is proven. Another challenge of consistent prayer is the temptation to compare your prayer life to others. You may look at someone else's spiritual discipline and feel inadequate, or you may see someone else's answered prayers and feel envious. Comparison is a thief of joy, especially in the realm of prayer. Your journey with God is unique, and so are your prayers. The hidden danger here is in losing sight of the personal relationship that prayer cultivates, replacing it with a performance-driven mindset that seeks approval rather than connection. As your prayer life deepens, you will also face the responsibility of stewarding answered prayers. When God answers a prayer, it is not merely a blessing, it is an invitation to greater faithfulness. If you pray for wisdom and God grants it, you must use it responsibly. If you pray for opportunities and they come, you must steward them well. The hidden danger lies in becoming complacent after receiving what you prayed for, forgetting that every blessing carries with it a call to stewardship. Prayer is a journey, not a destination. It is an ever-deepening relationship with the Creator, a conversation that spans the heights of joy and the depths of sorrow. It is both a privilege and a responsibility, a source of comfort and a call to action. But it is not without its dangers. To pray consistently is to open yourself to transformation, to challenge and to the unknown. It is to step into a realm where faith is tested, motives are purified, and lives are changed. The hidden dangers: prayer remains the most profound expression of our dependence on God. It is a lifeline, a beacon of hope, and a bridge to the eternal. And while it demands much, it gives infinitely more in return. Prayer is a profound act of trust. So let us not take this gift lightly. Every time you kneel, every time you lift your voice, every time you open your heart to the unseen, and a willingness to grow, you are declaring your reliance on something greater than yourself. In the mystery and complexity of prayer lies the power to touch the heart of God and to see His kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Consistent prayer calls you into a place of vulnerability where you must release control and allow God to intervene in His way, in His time, and for His purpose. That kind of surrender can feel unsettling, even dangerous, because it means stepping into the unknown. One of the lesser discussed realities of prayer is how it changes your sense of time. When you pray consistently, you begin to operate not on human timing, but on divine timing. The act of divine timing doesn't rush. And it doesn't delay. But it also brings conviction. It operates with precision. You are not only asking for divine intervention, you are also inviting divine examination. The danger lies in the waiting. God does not merely respond to the words you speak, but also to the condition of your heart. It can feel like nothing is happening when, in reality, everything is being prepared behind the scenes. Exposing motives, desires, and intentions that may not align with His will. In the waiting period. This can be uncomfortable because it requires honesty tries to drown out with God and with yourself. The hidden danger here is resistance. When prayer reveals truths about yourself that are difficult to face, will you address them or will you avoid them? Consistent prayer also requires humility. The longer you pray, the more you realize that you are not the source of your own answers. You may bring your requests, your hopes, and your dreams before God, but the outcomes are in His hands. This can be humbling, especially in a world that glorifies independence and self-sufficiency. Prayer teaches you that dependence on God is not weakness but strength. Yet for some, this dependency feels like a loss of control, and that loss can be difficult to accept. The danger is in letting pride prevent you from fully surrendering to God's will. There is another dimension to prayer that is rarely discussed: the cost of intimacy. As you grow closer to God through prayer, you will begin to share in His burdens. You will feel His heart for the lost, His sorrow for the broken, and His passion for justice. This intimacy is a gift, but it can also be overwhelming. To carry the heart of God is to feel deeply, to love sacrificially, and to act boldly. The danger lies in becoming weary. If you try to carry these burdens in your own strength, rather than laying them back at his feet, you risk burnout and disillusionment. The language of prayer is not just words, it is also silence. Some of the most profound moments in prayer come not when you are speaking, but when you are listening. Silence can be uncomfortable, especially in a world that is constantly noisy. But silence is where God often speaks the loudest. It is in the stillness that you hear his whisper, sense his presence, and receive his guidance. The hidden danger here is distraction. The enemy knows the power of silence and will do everything he can to disrupt it. To pray consistently is to learn to guard your moments of silence fiercely, knowing they are sacred ground. Prayer, when practiced consistently, will also change the way you view others. It is impossible to spend time in the presence of God and remain indifferent to the needs of the people around you. Prayer softens your heart, increases your compassion, and sharpens your awareness of the pain and suffering in the world. But with this awareness comes responsibility. When you see the needs of others, you are called not only to pray for them, but also to act. The hidden danger is in praying for change without being willing to be part of the solution. God often answers prayers for others through the actions of those who pray. The transformative power of prayer does not stop with your perspective, it extends to your identity. Consistent prayer reminds you of who you are in God's eyes, loved, chosen, and purposed. But as you embrace this identity, you will also encounter opposition. The enemy fears those who know who they are in Christ because they are unstoppable. When you pray consistently, you declare your identity as a child of God. As you persist in prayer, shakes the foundations of darkness. You will also begin to experience the power of agreement. Yet the danger lies in forgetting that this identity is not based on your performance in prayer, He is there, but on God's grace. Corporate prayer is a force that amplifies the power of individual prayer. But with agreement comes accountability. When you pray with others, you are not just uniting your voices, you are uniting your faith, your intentions, and your commitments. The hidden danger here is in treating corporate prayer as a routine rather than a covenant. The power of agreement lies in unity, and unity requires intentionality. Consistent prayer also invites divine pruning. When you ask God to use you, to mold you, or to bless you, you are also asking Him to remove anything that hinders His work in your life. Pruning is not punishment, it is preparation. But it can feel painful because it often involves letting go of things you thought you needed. The danger here is in resisting the pruning process. If you cling to what God is trying to remove, you hinder your growth and delay your breakthrough. Prayer is not just about receiving, it is also about releasing. The more you pray, the more you will encounter the mystery of God. There are aspects of His nature, His plans, and His ways that are beyond human comprehension. Consistent prayer brings you into a place of awe and wonder, but it also challenges your need for certainty. Faith is not the absence of doubt, but the choice to trust in the midst of uncertainty. Prayer will shape your destiny. The hidden danger is in seeking answers more than seeking God. Prayer is not about solving the mysteries of life, journey that will test your limits, but about trusting the one who holds them and deepen your relationship with God. It is not always easy, and it is not always comfortable, but it is always worth it. For in the act of prayer, you touch the heart of the eternal, align with the purposes of heaven, and become a vessel for His kingdom to be established on earth. As you persist in prayer, you will begin to notice that it doesn't just change your external circumstances, it changes you. This is one of the most profound yet challenging aspects of consistent prayer. Often we approach prayer hoping for God to transform our situations, yet in the process, we are the ones who are being transformed. Prayer exposes the layers of pride, impatience, and fear that we may have hidden even from ourselves. It calls us into a deeper level of honesty, where we can no longer present a facade to God or to ourselves. This self-awareness is necessary for growth. but it can be uncomfortable because it demands change. Change, especially the kind that comes from within, is rarely easy. Consistent prayer will reveal areas in your life that require realignment with God's will. This may mean addressing unresolved conflicts, letting go of toxic habits, or reevaluating priorities that have taken precedence over your relationship with God. The hidden danger here is resistance. Change often feels threatening because it requires stepping into the unknown, releasing what is familiar, and trusting God for what lies ahead. Yet, without this process of transformation, prayer becomes stagnant, a ritual rather than a journey. Another significant aspect of prayer is that it refines your perspective on blessings. Consistent prayer teaches you to recognize that blessings are not just material. They are found in peace, purpose, and the presence of God. However, this deeper understanding can sometimes lead to a tension between your earthly desires and heavenly priorities. When you pray consistently, you may find that God doesn't always answer in the way you expect. Instead of giving you what you want, He gives you what you need, and sometimes what you need comes in the form of challenges that shape your character. The hidden danger here is disappointment. If you measure the success of your prayers by immediate, tangible results, you may miss the deeper work God is doing in your life. As prayer deepens your relationship with God, it also increases your awareness of His sovereignty. You begin to realize that God is not obligated to act according to your timeline or expectations. He sees the bigger picture while we often focus on the immediate moment. This awareness can either lead to frustration or to peace, depending on how you respond. The danger lies in assuming that unanswered prayers mean God is distant or uncaring. In reality, silence often signifies that He is working in ways that you cannot yet see or understand. Trusting Him in these moments requires a faith that goes beyond what is seen. Consistent prayer also unveils the reality of spiritual authority. As you grow in prayer, you begin to understand that your words carry power, not because of who you are, but because of the one who empowers you. This authority allows you to speak into situations to bind and loose according to God's will, and to stand firm in the face of opposition. But authority must be exercised with humility and wisdom. The hidden danger here is in becoming overconfident in your own ability, rather than remaining dependent on God's guidance. Spiritual authority is not about commanding outcomes for personal gain, but about aligning with God's purposes. The spiritual authority gained through prayer also brings responsibility. When you pray for healing, justice, or breakthrough, you are not merely asking God to act, you are positioning yourself as part of the answer. Prayer aligns you with God's will, but it also compels you to act in obedience to that will. For example, praying for peace may lead God to use you as an agent of reconciliation. Praying for provision may require you to become a good steward of the resources you already have. The danger lies in praying for outcomes while neglecting the obedience required to participate in those outcomes. One of the most humbling aspects of prayer is its ability to remind us of our limitations. No matter how fervently or frequently you pray, there will be things that remain beyond your control. This is not a failure of prayer, but a reminder of our humanity. Prayer is not about forcing God's hand. It is about submitting to His will. Yet this submission can feel daunting, especially when it involves letting go of something or someone you deeply care about. The hidden danger is in allowing frustration to overshadow faith, forgetting that God's plans are higher than ours and His timing is perfect. As prayer shapes your character, it also refines your desires. Consistent prayer aligns your heart with God's heart, and in doing so, it transforms the way you view success, purpose, and fulfillment. You may find that what once seemed essential to your happiness no longer holds the same significance. This shift can be unsettling because it challenges the narratives you've built your life around. The danger lies in clinging to old desires when God is calling you into something new. Prayer invites you to trust that what He has for you is far greater than what you could imagine or achieve on your own. The journey of prayer also brings you face to face with the reality of interdependence. While prayer is often a personal act, it is also deeply communal. As you pray for others, you become part of a larger network of faith, hope, and love. This interconnectedness is both beautiful and challenging. It requires vulnerability as you share your burdens and receive the burdens of others. It demands consistency as you commit to lifting others up in prayer, even when it's inconvenient. The hidden danger is in approaching communal prayer as a transaction rather than a relationship. True prayer creates bonds of unity that reflect God's love, but these bonds must be nurtured with care and intentionality. Deep prayer teaches you about the power of gratitude. As you pray consistently, you begin to see God's hand in every aspect of your life, the big and the small, the seen and the unseen. This awareness fosters a spirit of thanksgiving that transforms how you approach both blessings and challenges. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is lacking to what is abundant, from what you cannot control to what God has already provided. But the danger is in taking this gratitude for granted, in becoming so accustomed to God's goodness that you forget to acknowledge it. Prayer reminds us to live with a heart that is continually turned toward Him in thanksgiving. Prayer is a dynamic, evolving journey that draws you closer to God, reshapes your identity, and aligns your life with His purposes. It is not without its complexities and challenges, but every step of the journey brings you into deeper communion with the One who created you. Through the discipline of prayer, you not only engage with God, but also discover more about yourself, your calling, and your place in His kingdom. It is a journey worth taking, no matter how difficult or uncertain it may sometimes feel. Prayer is not just an act, it is a lifestyle, a constant communion with the Creator of the universe. It calls you to a place of surrender, transformation, and responsibility. It is not for the faint of heart, for consistent prayer will stretch your faith, challenge your motives, and demand that you grow. But for all its hidden dangers and costs, prayer remains the most profound privilege given to humanity. It is the gateway to heaven's wisdom, the channel for God's power, and the foundation for a life aligned with His purpose. If you embrace prayer with humility and persistence, it will not leave you the same. It will mold you, refine you, and strengthen you. It will open your eyes to the realities of the spiritual realm and align your heart with God's. In prayer, you discover that the greatest answers are not what you receive, but who you become. So as you kneel, remember that prayer is not a tool for controlling God, but a means for God to transform you. It is a sacred dialogue where heaven meets earth and where lives yours and others are changed forever. Step into this gift boldly, for in prayer lies the power to overcome the impossible, the strength to endure the unimaginable, and the privilege to partner with God in His eternal plan. Let your prayers not just be words, but a declaration of faith, trust, and surrender to the One who holds all things in His hands.